Hey there, bold ones, and welcome to another episode of Act Bold. Today, I am super excited to invite Valorie Hubbard of the Actors Fast Track onto the show. Valorie is a seasoned actor, a seasoned actors coach. She helps actors get their shit together and get on the road to having a good career. She's based out of New York, but she works with actors all over the world. Valerie is a firecracker, and this is gonna be a good one. So welcome, 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 Valerie. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, when we met, it was a kismet, I felt like,
Yeah.
You're a good soul, and so I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, good, good, good,
Mm.
good. Well, let's just start with a little bit of the background. Tell me, how did you even get into acting? I know you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Well, when I was 3, I threw myself down the basement stairs very dramatically in a temper tantrum, and my mother thought I was dead, so she sent my father down to the basement stairs, and I was sitting there laughing, and the next day and I grew up in Kansas, the next day, they enrolled me in creative dramatics, so I think, I'm one of those people that I always knew what I wanted to do. It was always the thing that I did. So I went right to
Yeah.
acting school when I was 18 and then right to New York.
Amazing. I love that. I love how supportive your parents were of that as well.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think that might not have been the reaction of a lot of other parents,
No, I'm
to
very
send their
lucky. I
kids.
had great parents.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so you've been in all sorts of things. And then when did you start coaching?
Well, it's interesting because when I got out of acting school, they told me in acting school if I wanted to get an acting career, I needed to get an agent. So, I went to a conservatory, so I was a good little girl and I did what they told me to do. I got an agent, I went to New York. And my father was an entrepreneur, and so I think, I inherited that. It was in my blood. So when I got to New York, I kept feeling like there had to be something else that I should be doing. I was waiting for
Mm,
this agent who was more interested really in my husband because he was going to be the next Sean Penn. He
mm,
wasn't, but that was like I was kind of like the consolation prize, right? So
mhm,
I kept going to my agent. I kept asking him to get me an audition for this, get me an audition for that. And he would be like, you don't have the name, you don't have the name. And I experienced that
mhm.
catch 22 thing that I think a
Yeah,
lot of actors experience. Like you have to have credits to get auditions. And how do I
yeah.
get credits if I can't get auditions? So anyway, I started studying business and specifically sales and what that entire and so I started reaching out to casting directors on my own and getting them to, and I would call them. I would send them an email and then a week later I would call them. And out of 10 calls every week, I would average one appointment. And so
That's pretty
finally,
good,
yeah,
actually, when
yeah,
you're
it was
talking
good.
about
It was at
sales, right?
it was
Yeah,
10%, which is excellent in
yeah.
sales. And so they were doing a production of The Crucible at the Roundabout Theater, which is a very important theater in New York City. And it was going to be a big deal. Arthur Miller was going to be involved, and it was going to be a really big deal. And I knew that I was right for the role of Mercy Lewis. So again, for the millionth time, I went to the agent and I said, "Hey, can you get me an audition for this?" And he said, "You don't have the name." So I just snapped, something snapped inside of me. And so I took my headshot to the casting director. I got the audition and I got the play.
What
And
did your agent say? Wait, 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 what
uh,
did your agent say?
how'd you do that? Right? But like, what is he gonna say? I got the play and, so anyway, I just started doing that and I started getting results. And my friends were like, "Hey, how are you doing that?" And I said, "Well,
Mhm.
this is what I'm
Yeah.
doing." They're like, "Can you teach me?" And so I started teaching my friends. That's how it started. And then pretty soon my friends were like, "You should charge for this." And so I started a really small business. Now this is before computers. And I was making a living doing regional theater and commercials. And so, it was all on the phone and I ran and it was very like a side hustle kind of thing. So I did that for a number of years. And then when I was 41, I moved to LA and people were told me I was making a big mistake. And then 5 years later, everyone wanted me to be in their thing when I was doing movie and the Hannah Montana movie and, all the other things I was doing at the same time.
Right.
Anyway, so I in 2012, I just decided that I was seeing a lot of actors that I knew that were failing, and I was like, I should start my business again. So I started Actors Fast Track, and then I really built a system, and it became a big business. And I fell in love with business. I fell in love with business. And so that's the story of how I got into working with actors.
Wow, I love that. And how have you seen, because I mean, that's a long time, right?
Yeah.
2012 to 2000, it's almost 2025. I'm terrible at math. What is that? 13 years?
Yeah,
12,
13 years.
14 years? Because the industry has changed so much over that
Drastically.
short. Yeah. So
Drastically.
how is that? Have you like had to revamp your program like
Oh
every
my
2
god.
years or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, the anchors of my program, the pillars of my program, which are based in business. I always tell people, "I'm gonna give you an MBA in the business of acting if you come here."
Yeah.
And so, like,
Oh, amazing. I
the
love that.
pillars haven't changed much because I'm giving actors their power back and the permission to go out there and market and sell themselves. I mean, I guess 12 years ago, 90% of my actors, were pursuing agents and getting auditions that way, and 10% were content creators. Now it's exactly switched.
Mm,
And there's so many more ways to climb the mountain than when I got out of acting school. I've had people climb the mountain via social media, several people via social media, people producing their own films and going up the mountain that way. And then there's all different types of revenue streams now, like audiobooks and vertical content and user generated content. So there's so many ways to make money as an actor that weren't available to me when I got out of acting school.
for
So I
sure.
really
Yeah.
seen that change, and and really what I'm seeing happen, and I've been calling it for it's interesting because 'cause I've been calling this since 2016. The name of my last book was called Rule Breakers: Changing the Way Actors Do Business, and I was saying that our business, we have in America, we have Actors Access, and in, the UK, it's Spotlight, and I kept saying, "That's breaking down." I have been consistent with that, and I often felt like a
Well,
salmon
wait, when you say that's breaking down, you mean like this monopoly
the
in
way that
each
we do
country is
business,
yeah,
which
okay.
is to have an agent that gets the breakdowns, that sees the
Mm,
auditions, submits us for the auditions, and that whole system of submission is what is breaking down. And
interesting. So
yeah,
how do you tell me about that? Because I have not seen that, but so
okay.
tell me about that.
So how it's breaking down is this. Um, First of all, when everything went to an algorithm, because in the olden days, when the breakdowns would come in, your agent would look at the breakdowns and then they would decide what actors they were going to submit for what. That doesn't happen anymore. The algorithm assigns who they think is right for the role. And then all the agent does is click submit. If they have to unclick you if they don't want to submit you. So what occurred because of that is when the casting directors were getting maybe 2 to 3 submissions per role per agency, now they can get upwards of 10 to 15 because, it doesn't like, it's not a human, right? And
Mhm.
so, if it's a comedic actress, character actress between 40 and 60, literally every comedic actress or even character actress that that agent represents will get submitted to that role. Whereas, like, if it was, salty, earthy, not the brightest bulb in the bunch, and my agent saw that, he would see, like, okay, I'm gonna submit Valerie on that because she's gonna book that. Right? And so that's take so now they're getting way more submissions. So you'll hear casting
Yeah.
directors say, there's more actors. And actually, if you track British Equity and SAG after that, it's actually not true. There aren't more actors. So the system of like they're getting more auditions. That was the first thing that happened that stumped it. The next thing that happened was
Wait, can I
self-tape.
just ask
Yeah.
you though, are they using like some sort of a new software that it sounds like AI, right? When you say the
I
algorithms,
don't
is
even
it
the algorithm is the algorithm that Actors Access has built into it.
Oh, Actors Access has this.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so Actors Access is
Interesting.
the way that
Yeah.
our agents submit
Yeah.
us,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, 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 of course.
I like to call it
Yeah.
Actors No Access.
Well, I know, like, Spotlight, they'll sometimes get 20,000 submissions per role now. I mean, it's
Right.
insane. Yeah.
Because it's not being done by a human.
Mm.
Right, and that's a problem because they're getting
Mhm.
missions, and now everything's self-tape, and I don't care what
Mhm.
you tell me, they're not watching the self-tape all the way through. I don't
Oh, for
care.
sure not. Yeah,
No,
no way.
right,
Yeah.
they argue, "Oh, we're watching it." Okay, okay, right, and so I just think that that system is needs repair, right, and, it takes all person, I mean, am I happy that I can be on the moon and send an audition in? Yes. I mean, I used to like I was in Kansas, 2 weeks ago for a film festival. If I got a big audition, there are times where I would have flown home.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to do that
Yeah.
now. I mean, I can just,
Right.
put the camera and be somewhere and send it. That's great. But I do
Yeah.
think a disservice was done by casting directors when they didn't do Zoom auditions.
Mm.
And it was self-tapes because, self-tapes now are problematic. And as actors, we've had to learn a huge amount of stuff in
For
the
sure,
last
which is not bad, though. I mean, I think it
yeah.
has its upside and its downside. I think
Yeah.
it's good that we've had to learn this because it does give us more control over a lot of things. It also gives you a better understanding of the camera and, you know, different framing and all of that. So it does have certain advantages, and certainly I would never have a career if it weren't for self-tapes. As an American actress in Munich,
Yes.
it has its ups and its down, but I hear you. I totally do hear you. Although I think Zoom auditions, man, they open up a whole 'nother can of worms, don't you think? I mean, it's like,
I
where do
don't
I
know.
look?
I
Do I
mean,
look here? Do I look there?
well, I mean, I think, most of them, the ones that I have done, there's a reader there. You can see it in your phone. They say, just look at the reader and you look at the reader and do your scene. Right. That's been my experience with it. Because I've done a few of those.
I've done also quite a few of those, and I've never done it with my cell phone. So I've only ever had it on a computer, but maybe that's my fault, but I wasn't told to do it on the cell phone.
Mhm.
Um, and then I've taken a workshop on, like just put a piece of paper like right there next to the camera so that you're looking slightly off camera as opposed to like in the camera or down here like this, like I would
Yeah.
be looking at you right now.
Yeah.
So doing all that, but even that, I find that one even more if I'm looking up here and I'm not looking at you because then I'm not even seeing your reactions. I'm just listening.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And that's a problem with self-tapes too. I mean, a lot of times, I've been taught like to do a little self like, you would do if you booked it, which is like a lot of times you're not gonna in a close-up, you're not gonna see your person anyway because they
right.
give you here, look at the lens. And, so I what I do is like I'll take a post-it and draw eyeballs on it, right? So
Yes, I
and
do
then
that
I'll
too.
put
I've
it
got
on
a
either
happy
side
face
of
filter.
yeah.
Yes.
So at least I have a point of reference,
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So what do you think we talked about this when we had our chat before, but I think it's a good thing to go over anyway for actors to hear. What do you think is the most common mistake that actors make when it comes to their careers?
Okay, that's a great question. Uh, Probably waiting for someone else to give them their career, like an agent to come and rescue them. You know, they do a lot of actors. I think the biggest mistake they make is waiting.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, I'm always saying listen, this is your one life. This is your career. Your agent is hedging their bets. They've got a lot of people. They may love you, but they love other people too. And they're going to be thrilled if you win, but they're also going to be thrilled if somebody else wins because it's really about who's paying the rent.
Yes.
So, but this is the only thing that you have. This is your shot.
Yes.
So you got to take it. You can't wait for someone to give it to you. You have to go out there and tell people you want it. I find that this is something, especially with women. I don't know if this is your experience, but I find that because especially women of a certain age, have been conditioned to be good, to not be demanding, to
No.
um,
Not upset anyone. I
not to
don't want to
upset
ruffle
anyone.
any
Yeah,
feathers. I don't want to upset anyone. But I also
Yeah.
think that actors in general, men and women, are very conditioned for that. I always say
Mm.
you'd only have to be in London, LA, or New York for a year to be fully ensconced in the straitjacket of everything you're not supposed to do, right? And
Right,
so
right.
it's sort of like they're standing when I meet actors frequently, they're standing in the corner in absolute fear of
Mm.
being blacklisted, which is the most outrageous. I hear that all the time. And I think,
Me too.
what what
Yeah.
what does that even mean? So you're telling me that they have a Google Drive blacklist, and when they're gonna give you an audition, they're like, hey, Sophie Holland, is so and so on the blacklist?" And they're like, "Let me check." Like, and then sometimes
Yeah.
people will argue
Out
with
of the
you. They'll
20,000 people who submit, right?
and you and it's so funny to me, it's so ridiculous, but and then someone will argue with me, some casting director will argue, "Well, we had a blacklist." Like, who was on your blacklist? Crazy people, right? And if you there's always crazy people, and so definitely every company has a list of crazy people. I mean, if you're that's not just it's like we'll never sell to
Exactly.
that person, like, because
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
crazy. Right?
yeah.
I mean, I had a woman come to one of my events once that I've come to find out, she had a restraining order on every studio lot in Los Angeles, and
Oh
Matt
my
Damon had a
god.
restraining order against her.
Wow.
Hello, that's
Yeah,
blacklist, but, I think the
yeah.
blacklist thing is so funny to me.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I heard it again today because I just I did an online, festival thing,
Mhm.
like a workshop for a festival, and that was one of the things that came up by, like, 4 different people. Like, "I'm afraid that they won't call me in anymore. I'm afraid that they'll blacklist me," whatever it is, that version of it. But it's like, for what? For doing your job? For, like, letting them know that you exist? How are they supposed to know that what you can do and who you are and what it is that you bring to the table if you are not reaching out to them and reminding them, you know? So that is part of your job. You have to do that. So I don't know. I always find it interesting, and yet I get it. I do get it. I understand why they feel that way, and because I think that there's so much about this industry that is sort of by design to make actors feel disempowered, and it works. It
Mm.
totally works, and actors do feel disempowered, and
I
mission
always say
accomplished.
I always say that, there's only one person, like, if the movie or TV show or theater play is a car, there's only one person that you can't drive the car without, and that's an actor, but somehow we got locked in the trunk,
Right.
with
Yeah,
with the craft service
basically. Yeah, yeah. Well, at least we won't starve. Yeah. So we were talking the last time, and you had mentioned that you also had another program beyond helping actors with their career, which was helping them get into the right money mindset. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, I mean, that's part of my program. I mean, part of my program is getting actors, and we talk a lot about money because
Mm,
we are completely based on business principles. And so the most important thing in any business is to capture the cash. And so we really focus in on that because we want our actors making money. And, we brag like I have an actor that's going to make $100,000 this year doing user generated content. So we're
mm,
always talking about, making money and teaching our actors to negotiate. And so that's definitely, we have a whole actors biz school, and that's definitely one of our courses. And it's something we talk about a lot because I
mm,
think, like, most actors are part time actors getting part time results. And so if
mhm.
I can understand that I need to be a full-time actor doing a minimum of 5 outreaches a week, we try to push them to 5 a day, so 20 outreaches a week towards my customer base, because most actors spend all their time in acting class, getting new headshots, and working on their website. All of those
Yeah.
things are great and important, but that's why they fail because they're not focused on
What
bringing money
actually
in the
an
door, right?
opportunity
Getting
to
actual
yeah,
acting work, right? And
yeah,
also, actors are the only artists that work for free. Try to get a string quartet to play at your event and not pay them. It'll
yeah.
never happen, so I've really just come down hard on actors. Like, don't work for free. Don't work for
Mm,
free.
yeah. But it's this thing, and I get it. They love it, and they just wanna do it. They just want the opportunity, and a lot of them also get very caught up in, "Yeah, but I need to because I need some showreel material because I don't have anything." And so they're caught up in that, and there are so many
So if
other
that's the
ways.
case, if that's the case, sorry to interrupt you. If that's the case,
That's
then
okay.
I highly recommend having a criteria list. So a criteria list would be a list of 5 things that you run every audition and every booking through. And if 3 of the 5 things are a yes, you take the job. So one of those things could be, does it pay? Right? And then it could be, is it a script I'm really motivated by? Is it the director someone that I really believe in? Is it gonna move my career forward? Like, is it gonna help my career? And my 5th one is, are they organized? And
Mm,
I wrote this for myself because when I first started acting, we would get backstage, right? And we would go
yeah,
to auditions, and it frequently you would show up to an audition and it was like so unorganized. And how you do anything is how you do everything. And
yeah,
so I learned to run it through that list, and then it would help me to make a decision about, is this something I wanna do? Because, there was a play that I did a million years ago that created a tidal wave in my career that's still showing up today, and it was, like, 40 years ago, that, and it didn't pay.
yeah,
But it was a great script, it was gonna move my career forward, the director was really awesome, and it was they were organized, and it
yeah,
did, it introduced me to really important people, it, was a monumental play production that
yeah,
changed my life.
yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm not saying, like, don't always now mine is more like, does it pay my minimum? Right? Like, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
but I understand how young actors would want to do something because they need show reel or whatever.
And
But,
they just wanna get on set.
yeah,
And I totally agree. I have a very similar criteria list, but I always now add to it, "Show me your last show me a reel. Show me what you've done. Like, let me
yeah,
see what you've done, right? And who are you working with? And what camera are you shooting on?" Because that all matters too. I don't,
absolutely.
although today you can do amazing stuff with an iPhone, depending. So it matters less than it did a few years ago when I was really being hard about that. But yeah, it is so important. And I agree. It's not always just about the money. And it's so important to have the criteria to know, but to understand that not every job is worth your time,
Yeah,
because when you're saying yes to one, you're also saying no to something else.
yeah.
Like you may get something the next week that could have been better, and paid that
Well,
you
it's inter
can't do
2
now.
things that you said, like, the first of all, what we're talking about for you guys that are listening is we're talking about operating procedures, right? And so in business,
Mm,
you have standard operating procedures and, asking them what camera it is and, "Can I see your prior work?" Those are all great things to have and sorta have your own rules for your business. But
yeah.
I wanna tell you how I got into the money thing because I went to a conference of entrepreneurs. There was like 1,000 businesses there, right? And so the host was up on the stage and she asked us to stand up and some people come to the mic and tell her who our customer was and what their problem was. So I got up to the mic. I said, what? And she was Southern. She's like, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I have this company, and I work with actors." And she's like, "What do they need?" I said, "Well, they think they need agents. If they have agents," and I start going to the whole story, right? She stops me and she goes, "Where's all the money in that? Don't actors wanna make money?" And I was like and I'm thinking, bitch, you don't know actors, like, actors don't care about money."
What
And all of a sudden
artist. Yeah.
all of a sudden, this giant light bulb went off for me.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, "Oh my god." That's the problem. Like,
Yeah.
if they thought more about money, it would change the way they think. Because like, "Oh, I have to go to my waitress job because I gotta make money." What if you like, I always ask my actors, "What if you had to make money acting by putting that was the only way you could put food on the table, what would you do different than you're doing right now?
That's such a good question. I love that. What is one of the most unique ways that somebody's come up with an answer to that?
Well, I mean, like, this client that is making 100 grand this year doing user generated content. And he also came and taught all of my rest of my clients on how to negotiate because so many ways to make money right now involve you as an actor negotiating, whether it's vertical content, whether it's, audiobooks, whether, a big change I've seen is my actors are negotiating for themselves because there's so many jobs that don't involve an agent. And so they
Wow.
are negotiating for themselves, and so that's a skill set that I had to start teaching, like, how do you negotiate? Which has helped me because I realized, like, in my life, there was, like, this is how much it costs. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I pay you cash, how about this, right? Like, you
Mm,
can always ask, and, again,
yeah.
actors are scared to ask because they don't
Yeah.
wanna lose the job.
Yeah.
Right? And I've even seen agents. My agent is an amazing negotiator. That's one of the reasons I started working with him 17 years. He's given that up a little bit. And I think it's
The
like,
negotiate Oh, okay.
I've seen that, the negotiating thing, I think is really your big CAA and UTA and
Mm,
WME are negotiating for sure. Right.
mm.
But I think it's really important to negotiate it. So I think, doing, finding ways to bring cash because, like, if I think of the times when I've made a living as an actor, it's always because I had multiple streams of revenue, whether it was, commercials and regional theater
For
or
sure.
TV
Yeah.
and commercials. It was never just one thing without you were a series regular. But,
Yeah.
like, it's usually like you're making money doing this and you're making money doing that. And they all are involved in acting, but they create different streams of revenue coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. When I first, I mean, unusually, I think I first started negotiating for myself when I was doing voice work, and that was
Mhm.
here in Germany. And the first time I ever had someone who sort of like pushed back on my price, and he had said, "Well, the Germans don't do it for that price." And I was bitching about it later on that night to my husband, and he's like, "Well, tell him to hire a German." It's like, I love that. That's so good.
You have to be
And
willing to say that.
yeah, yeah, yes, you do. And I think this is kind of the crux of it. So you have to have enough of a cushion, or you have to have some sort of a something happening so that you are able to push that button, to say, "This is my price, this is what I'm worth, and I'm willing to walk away if you're not gonna pay it." And that's the hard one when you
Yeah.
only have acting, right? So and I get it. So I've always been an entrepreneur as well. I was raised by 2 entrepreneurs, and I've always, like, even like when I think I told you I was organizing one before, I had taken the 16-year hiatus. I'll just say it for because not everybody knows. 16-year hiatus, and then when I returned to acting, I was rusty. So I needed to get my confidence back in my skills. And so but I was based in Munich, and the language here is German, and my German is not native, and I didn't wanna add that other another layer of complexity onto getting my skills back by not being able to do it in my mother tongue. So my choice was I could fly to London, I could fly to New York, I could fly to LA and get the training I needed, but that was going to be crazy expensive. Or I could bring the people here. And that's what I started to do. And my full intention was with that was just to get the training. But what it ended up being was I was getting training for free. I was building a community. Now I had a community of actors. I could say, who are the good agents? Who are the nice casting directors? What's being cast? What's going on? All of those kind of things. Um, and I was earning, I mean, it wasn't a great shakes, but it was certainly enough steady income back then. So like 1,000, 2,000 per workshop or something. So and it was up to me how many workshops I coordinated. If I wanted to do more than one a month, I could do more than one a month. And it wasn't my only thing because I was still doing voice work, I was still doing presenting, I was still, had other things coming in. But I I think it's always important to there are so many things that actors can do, and we have so many skills that I think that actors will take for granted that
Yeah.
other people really value, and always be thinking like, how can you use those skills? Or how can you combine was on a coaching call, with an actress, this was a while back, but who was trying to figure out how to have enough money basically to cover the expenses of being an actor, getting new headshots, taking workshops, all those kind of things. And her passion beyond acting was for vintage clothes. And I was like, "Well, why don't you, every time you get a great new piece, like, make up a whole character or story about it, and, like, do a 1 or 2-minute video on it, and then sell the piece from that." So you're always, like, buying and reselling, right? But you're doing it in a way where you're also showing your acting. So
Yeah.
that you're combining these 2 things. So I
That's
think that
excellent.
yeah. So I think there are so many ways that we're so creative, actors are so creative, right? Except when it comes to, like, their own career. It's like all of a sudden, like, no, I have an agent, I send my stuff to the casting directors every 3 months and, what else am I supposed to do? And there are things. So
So
turn that
many.
beautiful creativity, yeah, into something that you could use that will help you to make money, to help to
Yes.
support you.
There's a great couple that Abby Walla, I think her name is, and she, her and this partner, they teach entrepreneurs how to be comfortable on camera.
Ooh,
And they've built a whole business around it, right?
wow.
Like, a lot of things that we take for granted, like, that so many entrepreneurs would give, anything to learn how to do that, to learn how to have the confidence that we have, right, on camera or on stage. So I think that's great. I love and also, what I loved about the vintage clothes thing was, like, kill as many birds with one stone as you can, right? Like,
Yes.
it could be your whole social media. You could build social media selling vintage clothes, and that could be, I mean, my God. Right. Also, like, now the big thing is, like, people selling clothes on social media, like live streaming selling clothes, right?
Oh, wow.
Or
I
selling
haven't seen that.
products.
Yeah.
And I have several clients that gone into that. It's like the home shopping network, and a lot of those places, they need someone that can really perform on camera to do it. I have 3 clients that are doing that, and they're making money, right? And
Wow.
so they go and they sell for these people their clothing online, and they sell it live, and so, we're good at that, we're good at being a
Yeah.
host. There's a
For
lot
sure.
of companies that want us to, I know a girl that did a thing where she would go and be the MC for companies that were doing events, and they needed an MC to
Yeah.
run the event. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
using your art in a way to bring money in is so good.
Yeah. Absolutely. It totally is. There was one show I did years ago. It was for a Canadian quiz show. And it
Yeah.
was 2 hours live of me doing a monologue into the camera. And it would be like, it was the lamest kind of quiz stuff. They would have like two cats hanging in a tree, and one cat would be missing its tail. And I'd be like, now I know this is a really tough thing. I want you to get right. Don't listen to what your mama told you about not going up to the screen. Get right up to the screen so you can figure out which one of these cats is different and what's different. And I would just be talking and talking, talking for hours at a time. It's something that I think again that actors they discount it because it's like, yeah, of course I can do that, and then they don't realize, but not everybody can, and not everybody feels comfortable.
One of the most fun jobs I ever had in my entire career was they were doing one of the new judge shows, like Judge Judy kinda show, right, with a new judge,
Yeah.
and they needed to screen test the bailiff and the court reporter. So they hired 5 actors and gave us a slew of cases, and we had to improvise different characters so the judge could get used to ruling on the bench, and then we had to play these different
Yeah.
characters, and I played everything from, and they were real people. I played everything from Head of Lettuce, a famous drag queen. I played her assistant, whose name was Bubbles.
I love it.
To
Yeah.
a Russian girl she was accusing her landlord of dripping bleach onto her clothes through the apartment above her to try to get her out of the apartment, just like crazy, like, cases, right? And we got to sit in a real courtroom and play these characters, and it was so much fun. Oh my gosh, it was
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I did something similar to I think it used to be Kraft Foods. I don't know what it's called anymore, but really similar. And they were training their high level managers on how to deal with really difficult, even higher level managers. And we were playing the really difficult higher level managers. We could swear at them. We could do all sorts of stuff. It was so much fun.
I
But I
love
guess
that stuff.
Oh, me too, and there are agencies. I haven't looked into that in a long time. I should look back into that. It was fun and lucrative. I mean, it paid pretty well for what it was, yeah. And I know, like, hospitals will also hire people to work with their doctors and to train
Yep,
them on how to
yep,
break bad news to people. So
yep.
these are you could reach out to your local hospital and just say, "When do you do this? When do you train your residents? How can I
They
apply
also
for that?"
do role playing with therapists that are in training and psychiatrists that are in training.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of role playing opportunities for
For
sure.
sure, for sure. And I think also with the rise of like, everybody's a creator these days, right? So from your neighborhood grocer to the Uber driver to your doctor, everybody is creating on one level or another. And I mean, even just offering, letting these people know, hey, I'm an actor. I can show you how to be comfortable on film. I can blah, 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 all the things that you can show them how to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's again, it involves like putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
So you just have to like do the thing, you have to step outside of your comfort zone
I think
and
a lot of it
actually,
also comes from the point of not being proud to be an actor a lot of times. Right? Like I think
mm,
it's like, that a lot of times we get um I just booked an acting job. It just came through. I was like, "Oh,
oh,
hey." Um,
I brought you luck.
but you did, because I was just complaining that I feel like I'd done all
And
these self-tapes and I never get an offer, right? And then I just saw my agent, "Offer, congratulations." I'm like, "Oh."
that's so good.
I
Congratulations. We'll
Hilarious.
celebrate in London.
Yes, we will, we will, we will. Thank God.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes with these self-tapes, like, you audition, 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 and it's like there's no that like and I also miss my friends, in the waiting
Yeah.
room, all my
Yeah.
audition friends. I miss that's something that really breaks my heart, and I miss my casting director friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saying, "Hey, how are you? How's it been? How's the family?" Because I was an actress forever. So I knew
Right.
those people. Yeah, I do miss
Yeah.
that. I really do.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to do things, and to really to make money. And I think that actors have a tendency to be afraid to tell people they're an actors because maybe we've all had that experience where you've been waiting tables and they're like, the person goes, "Are you an actor?" And you're like, "Yes."
Splash
And they're like,
waiter.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, what have you done?" And
Mhm.
the dreaded question of what have
Yeah.
you done? Right?
Yeah.
And that can be a really, and it's like learning how to have the confidence of like, well, I've been in several plays and I've been working really, or I'm really building my career. I'm at the beginning and, or when are you going to book something? I'm sure I'll book something soon. I'm doing all the things in order to book things. Like having the confidence to be able to answer that question when you get it.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that actors get knocked down so much, and also the product is you. It's not like, if I was selling you this, cup,
Exactly. Yeah.
and you said that's an ugly cup, I'd be like, okay. But if you say
Yeah.
you're an ugly actor, it's a totally different thing.
Absolutely. I totally get that. And I mean, this is why I think it's so important that actors go to a coach like you or like me or whatever. This is why I still go to coaches because
Mm,
I don't see myself clearly either. I want to have that feedback. You need to get that feedback. And so that you are making sure that your message is on point to your brand.
right.
Because we can go off, we can be aspirational, we can not give ourselves enough credit. There's, just depending on whatever lenses that we're wearing that day. But yeah, it's a catch-22, I think, because I think also actors are really the only is there another? I can't think of anything where people are literally selling themselves.
Mm.
I suppose singers to a certain extent,
Singers
dancers to a
and
certain
ballet,
extent.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
dancers. I
yeah,
think I think
yeah.
that, I think it's noble. Actors are noble because it's really a hard profession and they're putting themselves out there and um I've always had a lot of respect for actors and people gobble you up, every night when I sit in front of Netflix or whatever and I'm gobbling up the content, but then the first person that you can put down, like,
Yeah.
"You're just an actor." I mean, I if you've ever gone on a set and someone said, "Oh, you're just the just an actor," I'm
No.
like, "Yeah, you wouldn't even be here if I wasn't here." So, I'm not just an actor, I am an actor, right? And I
Right,
think so
right.
really learning how to be in your power and to speak up for yourself, you don't have to be an ass, but to be someone that really, working on your confidence is one of the most important things that you can do as an actor.
Oh my god, I think as a human being, but especially as an actor because you are the product, because you have to be confident about the product that you're selling. I always say, your mindset is 80%. The other 20%, that's just mechanics and guidance. Mindset, if whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. It's everything. So either you have to act as if you believe it, like do the actions as if you believe it, because that will create, confidence taking those actions, or you're not going to do the things you need to do. So it's that choice that the actors have. They can either choose to believe or they can choose to act as if they believe until they believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, well.
We solved all the world's problems,
We
and
did, we sure did. Valerie Hubbard for president.
please, okay. No, I don't want that job.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want it
Mm,
either,
no,
actually. No.
not a job I
Although,
want.
my dog could do a better job, but we won't go there. We won't go there.
We won't go there.
No. Okay. Well, Valerie, this has been such a pleasure. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach out at actorsfasttrack.com. And my name is Valorie, Valorie at actorsfasttrack.com. And I'm on all social media sites, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm there. And it's always at Actors Fast Track is how you find me. And so you can reach out in all of those places.
Valerie, it has been such a pleasure. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in London in February.
I look forward to that too. I'm looking forward to that. I will see you there.